Well, hello everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And I am Lou, and I'm an astrologer and writer and shamanic practitioner.
And I'm Jen, and I'm an Akashic healer and reader and creator of the Illuminating Journey cards, as well as a numerologist.
Cool. And today we're going to mostly be talking about the energy of the Virgo New Moon on September the 9th, but also the energy around it, because there's quite a few kind of occurrences just before and just afterwards. So a quick rundown of the energy of the new moon. It's at 17 degrees and 0 minutes of Virgo. And it's a Virgo new moon, therefore the ruler is Mercury, and Mercury will also be in Virgo at 6 degrees. And the moon is aspecting an opposition to Neptune in Pisces. There'll be a sextile to Jupiter in Scorpio and a trine to Pluto in Capricorn. And the day just before, 3 days before the new moon, Saturn turns direct. The day after the new moon, Mars finally moves back into Aquarius, but Mars will still be out of bounds. And also, Venus has just moved into Scorpio on the new moon and is moving into an opposition with Uranus over there in Taurus. So there's kind of quite a lot going on around this new moon. So do you want to give your initial thoughts, Jen?
Sure. I was just thinking about what you were saying and thinking about this interesting aspect of the numbers that are playing in here. Because we're September, it's always a 9 months. So 9 is about this kind of ending. It's inviting into our wisdom, and it's telling us that we're getting ready or preparing for a new cycle. This year, every year, the September is always a reflection of the actual year, right? There's a repetition, or it invites the universal number, because 9, when you add it to a number, becomes that number, right? It always repeats the number. So we're in an 11 universal year. 2 + 1 + 8 makes 11. So when you add 9 to 11, we get 20, which is a 2. So we have the 20 universal months. And this is about recognizing the polarity between numbers, or two sides, light and dark, or someone else's opinion and your opinion. You know, it's like all of these things. It's finding that balance. And I'll say more about the 2 later, but there's a lot of 2 energy. And the interesting thing is, here we have in September this 9, which is always there. We have the 11 of the year, and we have the 20. So we're repeating the numbers of the year, the 2018, because 2 and the 20, and then the 18 makes 9, plus we have the 11, which 1 and 1 make 2. So we have the invitation to expand or allow in this divine energy, or our intuition, whatever you want to call it, and allow it into our physical bodies. So there's that transmutation that's happening, bringing in the sense of peace and balance, and giving us the opportunity to enter this time in a new way, because September is a time when we begin something new. If our harvest has ended, we're looking at what we've created and what we're going to do next year, what we're going to take forward. Or if we're on the other side of the world, then we're looking at spring. What are we going to harvest? So there's this energy here of the bringing the polarity together, that 11 repeated with the 2, that balancing energy coming forward. And then the exciting thing about this particular day, we're having it on the 9th So again, here's the repetition of that 9.
Mm.
And it's an 11 universal day. So there's a lot of the same numbers repeating. The
Mm.
11, the 9, the 2. So it's bringing us back to the sense of who we are in a bigger way.
And interestingly, the Jupiter and Pluto in the new moon chart are both at 9 because they're at 18 degrees.
That's right. And that's the
Yeah.
sacred 18 that is in our year. So it's
Yeah.
there's this constant interplay with the numbers that is so fascinating. The 9 and 2 have shown up repeatedly, over the past 2 or 3 years. And here they are kind of playing themselves out throughout the year and specifically in this month and in this new moon. So it's pretty amazing.
Mm. And there's the 2, of course, Saturn's just stationed direct at 2 degrees Capricorn. Uranus is at 2 degrees of Taurus, retrograde, still at his retrograde degree. Pallas Athene is at 2 degrees Virgo.
Yes. Yes.
And Mars, who I mentioned will move back into Aquarius the day after the new moon, is at the 29 Capricorn, so 11.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a lot of those same.
Yes, and the interesting thing is that the actual universal day is 29, and that's the 11. So it's really very interesting how there's this connectivity, and of course the 2 is about relationships, and it's about our relationship to the world around us, or how we see ourselves, and I call it the number of surrender, because it really does ask us to surrender, or if you think of surrender as bowing to what is out there, right? What is true. In terms of, we look at, here are these 2 polarizations, and how do I bring them to the center? Or this is me and this is the world outside, or people are making me do things and I don't want to. Where's that place when we find that surrender to allow who we are to come forward into the world and just go, this is who I am. I'm accepting who I am. And that bowing to oneself, to one's higher self, even bowing to the people around you, going, I see you, I recognize you. That doesn't mean that I let you do whatever you want to me, right? That's the shadow of the 2. But this is this receptivity to recognition. In fact, in many religions, the reason why people bow like low, like in Indian religions, etc., you bow low, like you put your head on the floor, because you're putting your head below your heart, which means that you're recognizing that your heart is leading, right? Not your head. It's not the mind that's deciding.
You're not bowing to anything out there. This is
yes.
about, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, astrologically, when I look at this chart, I clearly start with the Virgo Pisces polarity, which to me, Virgo is very much about one who is whole unto themselves. It's the virgin, which the true meaning of the word is she who is whole unto herself. It's a very female sign. There's a lot of earth and water, so that brings me back to the sculpting theme for the year that I've talked about. The new moon is opposing Neptune, so it's in Pisces, so it's bringing down to earth in a practical way the kind of mystery, the muse, the connection with the unconscious. It's a very rebirthing, kind of remaking new moon. And with the aspects to Jupiter in Scorpio, of course, Jupiter in Scorpio has been very much about the Me Too movement. So it's the rise of this feminine voice saying no more. We're going to dig out the corruption and the abuse and things, and it seems to be building up speed at the moment, with the Pope's visit to Ireland and the talk about the in Pennsylvania, all the priests' abuse. So it's all this kind of gunk, and everything is being brought to the surface. And of course, Pluto in Capricorn's been doing that as well with our institutions for quite a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's quite a lot more that emerges from this new moon and this new beginning, about people kind of, I think there's going to be a lot of remembering and kind of knowing where you've kind of given your power away or had your power taken from you, or conversely as well, had wielded power over others as well, unnecessarily. But there's a lot of that about kind of letting that come to the surface so we can release it and let it go and kind of start again in a new way.
Yeah. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No.
Oh, sorry. I was eager to jump in. Yes. You know what? It's like this coming to terms with the reality of who you are in a bigger way. So going at, like you're saying, yes, I did this, or I allowed myself to, be pushed around, or whatever, however we look at it, and also go at that thing and go, well, yes, I did that, but at the same time, that was the best I could do. And, I didn't know what I know. So it's that coming to terms with a sense of reckoning, but also with a sense of peace or harmony. Yes, I recognize on the one hand, this happened, but on the other hand, this happened. Or on the one hand, there was abuse. So we do want a reckoning of the abuse, but we also want to come to terms, like we don't want to just keep like you did this terrible thing, I'm just going to keep hurting you. It's like this is that moment of releasing, which is so interesting, because I didn't mention that the sun and moon 17, I know you mentioned that 17 degrees is it's 1 and 7 is an 8, but it's also 17 is the number of immortality, or leaving a legacy, where we're touching into those things, that immortal part of ourselves, the immortal part of the acts we've taken and the thoughts we've had, and allowing it to be grounded in a new reality. The 8, this is the number of success, but success, or 8, is about that balance again, right? It's 2 zeros coming together in this equalizing what's spiritual and what's material, and making something more material in a new way. It's about leadership. We're leading into the space with new energy, which means we need to clean up our act, take responsibility. I find it fascinating that Virgo has just gone into Scorpio, right? Which is kind of digging up the dirt, going under. And here she's taking her place.
Venus, yeah.
Yes. Who did I say? Venus.
Virgo.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And yes, Venus going into Scorpio. And but there with this energy of Virgo is very powerful, because it is this the ultimate goddess energy on earth, which is what the 11 speaks about, the 17 or the 8 speak about, the 2, all of these numbers, the 9, they all speak about bringing that energy into the space we're in, so we can begin to come to the table, not with the craziness, but like being in our bodies, but also speaking our truth, like going, you said this, or you did this to me. And somebody going, instead of them going, no, I didn't, and weaseling away, now they're kind of caught in the light, and they have to go, yes, I did, and I apologize, which comes to that place of surrendering, right? You're bowing to the reality. You're going, yes, that I did do that, but I'm choosing something different. And this is also this whole theme of this year, and since the great American eclipse last year, right? The theme of coming into integrity with ourselves means that we are recognizing our sovereign selves, but we're also owning up to the hidden part of who we are, which I think ties in, it's so amazing. Here we have Venus, creeping closer to Jupiter, and there we have Jupiter at 18 degrees and Pluto, right? The two of them at 18 degrees, which again is this about endings, right? It's about releasing the ego or the egoic concepts of I'm entitled to boss people around, or I need to kind of diminish who I am. And this action, even of our year, the 20 and the 18, making us face it. And in fact, the 20 is this number called the awakening, right? So it allows us to see things that we haven't and accept that, so it seems to tie in exactly with the what's happening in the chart.
Now, and looking at the chart, I just really notice more and more all the time, there's no significant fire. There's there's the North Node and a couple of asteroids in fire, and Dwarf and Chiron, and there's no significant air. And by significant, I mean like the main planets and the main things we look at. And of course, air and fire are both very yang energies, young, Y-A-N-G, however they say it. They always say it a bit different to us.
Yes.
But therefore very male energies, if you like, so to speak. And of course, earth and water, which are the other two elements, which really this chart is almost all earth and water, is the very female energy. So this has got this very yin, very healing, it's a beautiful, beautiful chart. Venus is actually just about to make an exact kite configuration with Saturn, with this grand trine between Saturn, Uranus, and Pallas Athena, in Earth signs. And that's making Venus very much a big focal point in this chart, as well as the new moon clearly being a focal point. And she's stationing to go retrograde on October the 2nd. So she's moving into Scorpio, and she will get as far as 10 degrees and then go back over this point again and back into Libra, and then back into Scorpio again. So she's really coming into a very powerful position here as she approaches her retrograde journey, which is the story of Inanna, who goes down into the underworld, kidnapped by not kidnapped by Pluto, that's Persephone, but the underworld's the realm of Pluto, that kind of dark depths. So we're really kind of being taken down into this very emotional healing journey on this new moon, I think, really.
Yes, and it's so interesting because, of course, the journey of Inanna is about surrender, because you go through the 7 gates and you release your hold on something you think you can't live without.
All the trappings, yeah.
Yes, all the trappings or the illusion, like your egoic illusions, like, oh, I'm important, I'm this, I'm that, or I can't function without this. And when you're going to the depths and actually having that death, which is what, Scorpio is all about. It's about having that death. And I'm just coming to mind, when they talk about, when you have an orgasm, it's called le petit mort, right? Le petit mort, which is the little death, right? So it's that place where you die because of all the things you thought were important are taken from you.
And coming on the back of all these eclipses, which is literally eclipsed
Yes,
a lot of things in people's lives, patterns, not just stuff I'm not talking about, but just old ways of looking at things, old ways of thinking. I really think this is really the beginning of the dying death of the breath of the patriarchy, personally.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. And I think what's interesting about it in terms of this death, right, is what is emerging, or what's being offered to us to emerge, is a kind of more balanced place, from a place of peace. So when we're looking at somebody or something or the thing we're birthing, because remember the 17 is about immortality. What are we bringing into the space that we want to take forward? And this idea of being diplomatic, right, which is also part of the two. You know, I always say, don't be be a diplomat, not a doormat, right?
Yeah.
And this idea of, yes, we can hold those accountable, or ourselves accountable, without destroying ourselves. Like when we use our egos to get revenge or prove that, yes, you have to suffer because I suffered. Which doesn't mean you shouldn't have consequences, right? But it comes from a
Absolutely not. It's different than this punishing kind of.
Exactly. It's that thing of recognizing we've taken actions and their consequences. So we accept the consequences, but we also recognize with the two energy that we don't have to be so hard on ourselves or hard on like, oh, I'm not allowed to. I see a lot of times people have this idea that, you know, what I've done or my life, I didn't suffer that much. It doesn't equal someone else's, or, you know, they deserve more or they're worth more. And just that recognition that we're all are entitled to the common things, right? And that acceptance of ourselves as being divinely infused. Like every one of us brings something to the table that has value. Like one isn't more valuable than the other, even though it may appear that, oh, this person is more elevated, but they're just doing something differently because that's their that's their station. And when I say station, I don't mean that they're higher or lower, but it's more like, you know, this is who I am, like the planets, right? This is who I am. This is my job. I'm not less or more.
But there's also, I think, in this chart, a very big element of, and I'm going to kind of have a little rant about Virgo here.
Okay, rant away.
I think Virgo gets a bad rap as a sign. I think
yes, I agree.
think it's seen as very boring because it's very service oriented, very, you know, about routines and about organizing and detail. But it's also a deeply, deeply healing sign. It's really one that really wants to bring the harvest of all that we've got and make something beautiful out of it. And it's very much about useful, getting back to work. And I find it funny, actually, it just occurred to me that we're recording this on Labor Day here in the USA. Celebrate unions and things, which to my mind is a very Virgo kind of energy, unions for work,
yes.
because it's about coming together to work out the details and fight for everybody's rights and things. So how appropriate that we're recording on Labor Day.
Yes.
Well,
exactly. And equality, right? This is about equality. It's very much the two energy, the things you're saying. Getting attention to detail is very much a two number. And with this, you know, with Saturn, you know, being at 2, right? And playing such an important role, about that's the same thing, right? You can say Saturn has a bad rap too. It's like this evil thing. It really is about attending to the details, getting to work, and like, what is it that we need to focus on? Because we can spend our lives, as many of us have, focusing on the wrongs that have been done to us. So it's like that moment, like you got to shit or get off the pot. Like, it's like, what is it that you need to tell somebody or do to kind of get out of that hole you're in? And that focus, like, what is it? Do you need to tell somebody they did this and just to get it off your chest? Do you need to do this like Me Too thing of holding people accountable out in the public? Like, whatever it is, do that so you can then go, okay, right, I've said my piece. Things are going towards that. I'm doing that. But now I'm attending to the next detail of, I don't want to live in this space of being trapped by my emotions, like my resentment, right?
And
Of what's
stuck in the
happened.
story, you know.
Yes,
Because, of
exactly.
course, because Mercury's there and rules this new moon and is in Virgo. So, yes, this is about telling your story, but it's not about sitting stuck in it anymore. The
Yeah.
telling, the telling of the story releases it, however you do it. With you, you don't have to write a book. By the way, not everybody has to write a book doing their tell-all, but there's
Well,
there's ways to release your story without. Write a book if you want to, then. But
yes. Well, I think there's something powerful. You know, this idea that we need to follow the system. Like, yes, I got a story and I've got to tell it. Everybody needs to hear my story. And sometimes it's true. You have a story that is relevant, and as
yeah,
you says, if you want to go out and do it, do it. You know, for me, I feel like we've moved beyond telling the story for the sake of the story.
yeah,
If you have a story to tell it because it's a teachable moment.
mm-hmm.
It's something you can share and it moves you forward, right? You're
Exactly.
taking your cart that's been stuck in the mud and you're pushing it forward and you're going, you know what? This experience that I had, it sucked, but it really made my bones. And now I'm moving beyond that. I'm taking responsibility of that piece fits here and here I'm going forward, right? That
Yeah,
whole mud thing, when you're talking about creating with mud, using earth and water, what are you creating? Because that's what you do with, you know, it's kind of like we're all gathering at the banks with the water and we're like, okay, I'm going to make something, but what are we making, right?
yeah. And you know, we're doing that sculpting thing. We're taking the pieces, the clay, we're molding it into this, and it's this part. Did the you know I did this because this happened to me, and in fact, you know, I never think there's any coincidences. And right before we got on the call together, one of my Facebook friends posted that she was sitting at her mum's grave, talking to her mum, having a coffee because it's the anniversary of her mum's death 20 years ago. And she focused on the gift of being at her mum's bedside 20 years ago and how that had shaped her life. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. This
Yes.
happened. Yes, it was not fun, you know, at the time, but the gift of it was that she kind of seized every moment and tried to emulate the best parts of her mum and things like that. So, you know, there's always a gift in every story, I think. And
Well,
that's what we can look at in this new moon.
well, it's also about choice because you got to remember too, you know, is and some of the other energies around is about choice. What are we choosing? Like there's nothing making us do stuff. We
No.
have this illusion, like, you know, I'm waiting for a sign. Well, I mean, sometimes we are waiting for a sign, but I mean, I'm waiting for someone to tell me what to do. We have this society that we've been schooled like little children, like we're waiting for the bell to go or the headmistress to say, okay, run out, it's recess. And we have to pull ourselves back from this precipice of needing instruction from someone else and going, well, this is my experience. And now I feel like this energy coming into me, this, you know, the water into my mud. It's like, yes, I have this inspiration, these ideas. I want to shape a different world for myself.
And that's bringing in that Neptune in Pisces down to earth. It's
Yes.
because Neptune in Pisces is spirit, it's the mystery, it's music, it's creativity also, but it's kind of the creativity that just flows through you, not kind of thinking creativity, if you like, or painting still life kind of creativity. It's much more flowy than that. So this is about, and and the Hanged Man in the tarot is a very good card for this new moon, I think, actually, because he's hanging upside down, just letting this intuition and creativity and mystery flow through. and down to earth. And that's what you're being asked to do here as well, and then shape it all. So
exactly. And it's interesting. Yes, you brought up the tarot. So the 20 card is the judgment card, which as humans, we tend to think of judgment as that person's wrong, I'm right, or however, this polarization. But true judgment is about looking at what is. So it's kind of what we're talking about, looking at what is and allowing ourselves to rise beyond our small ideas. Let this intuition flow in. The 2, like Neptune, the 11, these are numbers about intuition, about bringing that into our physical body and allowing ourselves to live through that. So to go, wow, I see this opportunity for me to rise above where I've been, right? So it's like this rising tide, right, of choice. I'm choosing to shape or mold something different. And I recognize, like, I'm getting that sense of being illuminated or lifted or getting a sense of a crown or something, like, wow, I see the things I haven't seen. I'm choosing something different. So again, there's that sense of agreement and intuition and allowance that allows us to give ourselves the freedom not to be so stuck in the mud.
And of course, right after this new moon, which is a very muddy new moon, but we're not. But we're not going to be left stuck in it, because right after this new moon, Mars moves back into Aquarius. He's still in his outer bound state, so he's still kind of not very Mars-like, really. He's kind of rogue, and he's moving into Aquarius, which is the sign of the new paradigm that we're moving into, the age of Aquarius. And Aquarius is very much about doing things differently. And he's been retrograde, Mars, and he's going to go back into Aquarius, having learned his retrograde lessons. And this applies to everybody, and Mars is our drive and our will and our energy to move forward. And as soon as he moves back into Aquarius, he aspects Chiron in Aries, which is Mars ruled. And that's the maverick shaman. I don't like the term wounded healer, actually, for Chiron. I think he's much more exciting than that. Everybody always goes, Chiron is the wound. Well, I don't think. Yes, he did have this wound in his mythological story, but he's about healing it and finding a solution, and how we heal from the wound. He's not just about the wound. So
good point. He is a healer. That's the ultimate, right?
Exactly.
Finding the solution, like you said. This is about the solution.
And so Mars aspects Chiron right away, and this is all about Mars and Aries is the very I am energy. We've changed radically through all these last lots of eclipses, particularly starting with that one last year, the Great American Eclipse. And I can see that people have changed. I know I've changed dramatically, but I've witnessed it in so many of my friends, so many people I see. And we're continuing to change. We're continuing to take more responsibility for ourselves. We're really kind of stepping up and saying, this is me, this is who I am, kind of like it or leave it kind of thing. And that's very healing as well, to be able to say that. So that's happening right the day after. And then, of course, Mars also, once he moves into Aquarius, also moves on to aspect Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. So we've kind of got all this configuration of Aries, Aquarian energy coming in to shape this earth energy that we've coming out of, or the muddy energy that we're coming out of. It's really quite exciting, I think.
It is very exciting. And I think also remembering that the moon and the sun, the new moon, the degree, it's 17 exact, which is crazy. Okay, so 17, it is a very active number. This is about taking leadership or taking risks, right? a different kind of risk. Like a lot of our lives have been ruled by what we think we need to be or how we need to look in the world. And all of this energy in this moon to me is like, it's like the door is just kind of bursting open. Remembering it's kind of like the 11 and this year is about stepping through the unknown. Like everything is unknown until we experience it. Like we can't have that certainty that we've had by I'm going to do this and this is what's going to happen, right? We don't know. The only certainty is knowing ourselves and allowing our truth or our gifts and our abilities to shine, and taking those risks, like looking like a fool. Because we can, right? And because it shifts us, and that's our certainty.
And it's about being very real as well.
Yes, exactly. Like,
and that's an overused word in some ways, because people, in the coaching world have used this, be real and all that. But this is really about being real and kind of being okay, showing your warts more and having more deep acceptance about who you truly are, and stopping all this trying to be something that you're. I'm not saying you shouldn't strive to kind of be a little, all these words, actually, I'm fed up of them. Improvement, bettering yourself, things like that. Well, why not just, get to know yourself intimately and be okay with who you are, and just try and live your shinier bits.
Well, I think that there's a big, I agree. I actually think that whole story about, betterment in terms of, the rags to riches or whatever this thing is such bullshit. But it's like, that's what keeps us frozen, right? Because we're like, well, I want to do what I want to do. It's like when you're a kid, and you have all these like thoughts. You go out and you're like, I know I'm going to do this. And then some adult comes and tells you, no, you can't do it like this, and like pushing you into a box. And then you're like, wow, I better not make a step wrong because, I won't make enough money, or I won't do it right. And none of those things actually works. And that house of cards is just collapsing. So
it really is. Yeah.
It's true. Being more intimate with ourselves and recognizing, what's real for you? Like,
exactly.
I don't want to be famous. I just want to be at peace and just do my thing. Right.
Yeah.
And that's way more powerful than like, oh, I'm going to conquer the world. Right.
And I'm going to have like this massive house and these blah blah blah,
Yeah, I mean, if that's part of who you are. I mean, I think there's that kind of natural energy of leadership that we all take our place in the circle without saying, well, I need to be like that person. We're not.
Some people will still have the massive house for sure. Yeah, but
absolutely. But that's choice.
It's not my thing. I don't really want
free will, right? This is the idea of free will. Like, what do I want, right? This is that time to explore and uncover and shape what is ours to do, and not like I have to do this to impress others, or I need to do it so people will listen to me, right? Or any of those fake reasons for doing something. This is about getting real. Like, that's the 17, that's the 2, that's the 9. It's honoring our wisdom.
It's a very Virgo word as well, really.
Yes.
So, yeah,
absolutely.
Things.
Yes, and that feminine side is giving us the freedom, right, to break the mold of this is the way it's done. And I find it fascinating that Venus and the female energy is leading the way here. Like, the masculine energy is following the lead of the female, and of course, remembering that Uranus is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, right? That's a aspect of this.
Yeah.
I've personally found in the last few weeks, and especially in the last few days, since September, this huge amount of feminine energy coming into my space, into my life. It's like the feminine energy has suddenly started to take over everything, and it's so much softer and sweeter and kinder. And I think that's the key here, is being kind to ourselves so we can be kind to others.
I agree. And, you know, just to kind of just to look ahead a little bit just after it, I talked about Mars. I'm not going to go through all the aspects, but we have some beautiful aspects following this new moon. We have some beautiful sextiles and trines and nice mixes of energies that are all going to just really, I think we're all going to feel a big forward boost. You know, we're coming off this crazy summer.
Yeah.
with so many retrogrades and then 3 eclipses where we normally have 2 and things like that. And there was a fabulous meme that I shared that somebody had made with a person being pummeled by all these. And a lot of us are feeling very weary and kind of a little bit battle worn. But I really feel after this new moon, we're going to start to really kind of surge forward and feel like we can really create something here.
Yes. I'm nodding my head here, and I know you can't see me, but I'm just nodding along with what you're saying. But I think this is the key here, is to understand that battle-weary experience, like this craziness, this crazy ride we've been on, and especially in the last 4 months, like we've really been pummeled. I mean, so many people have suddenly moved, or there's been a lot of death and all kinds of things going on. And what's interesting is when you're battle-weary, like this is when we're in the best place to surrender to what we really desire, which is to love ourselves and to express who we are with the freedom and the innocence of being a child.
Yeah.
The joy of that.
And the exciting thing is that 2 weeks after the new moon, we have a full moon at 1 degree of Aries, conjunct that maverick shaman Chiron. And, you know, and Aries is the sign. I always think of Aries as the toddler.
Yes.
And we're going to be invited to be toddlers again, to just enjoy life and just
toddle along.
Yeah. And if you think about how little toddlers behave, they're just really they mean no harm. They just want what they want, and they want it now. And so this is all about, you know, fulfilling your wants and fulfilling who you really want to be, or who you really are, to get back to that real world.
Yes. And you know what's so interesting about what you're saying, and I think it's a key we have to grasp, is that it's okay to want what you want and explore and do all these things and not be so controlled by other people saying, no, you can't have that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, you know, bad behavior. I'm not talking about,
outrageous
behavior. But the freedom to express you. And if those people are disturbed, then they can walk away, or you can walk away. It's like you don't have to stay locked in these relationships with people who are at odds with you. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, because this is about relationships. This whole month is about relationships.
Oh, it is, with Venus, and then going in, well, the next 2 months, really, with Venus going into retrograde.
Well, it's interesting that we have this breakthrough with Venus, right? And this female energy and the Virgo energy, and then she goes into this, into her journey. So it's even more rich and lush that we get to go to this retrograde after we've gone through this month of love, like loving ourselves or surrendering to, you know, our higher energies, in the sense like, wow, I have divine energy in me. I have this intuition. I can, you know, I can really start to listen to myself and not beat myself up.
And interestingly, just a quick thing about Inanna, she goes down into the underworld and meets her sister Ereshkigal, who is really her shadow side. And so that's the journey we'll be taking in the Venus retrograde. It's it's kind of interesting. And so it's about our relationship with ourselves, with our deeper inner self. This is not about everybody else. So
Yes. And it's so appropriate that Venus is in Scorpio, because
exactly.
that's the depth of ourselves that we are terrified of, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're terrified that we won't be loved or accepted when we reveal the secret side of ourselves, or the shadow of who we are. And knowing we're still loved,
Exactly.
is really the ultimate. I mean, that's what brings us to total surrender, that we
Mm-hmm.
can crumple and die and be these, what we've been told, wasters, and all these
Yeah.
terrible things that we've accepted about ourselves, and go like, wait, I'm
Um,
still loved. And so
yeah.
that frees us. It's like all that crap can just be released, and
Yeah.
all that kind of pointing of fingers can be released and washed away. And it's like, oh, I'm cleansed, I'm new, I'm that toddler. I'm like, wow, what's it like bumping around in the world without having, these restrictions, mental restrictions, right?
And I love that you use the word cleansed, because that's another good Virgo word for
Yes.
that, because Virgo is about purification and cleansing. So, but people get that all screwed up as well. The word purification is about being perfect. But no, this is about cleansing all that crap you don't need anymore.
Yes, exactly. Which
Yeah.
makes me think of the judgment, like the judgment
Yes.
card. Again, it's the judgment isn't about, oh, you're a bad person, go stand in the
Exactly.
corner.
It's
It's,
it's discernment is more the
yes,
one. Yeah.
exactly. Discerning what is like, oh, so you did that. That's okay.
Yeah.
Do you still want to keep doing it, or are you choosing something different?
Yeah. Well, Jen, I don't know about you, but I think we've kind of covered everything, really, unless there's any final words you want to say on it. So,
Well, I do have the Sabian symbol. So do you
oh,
want to go ahead? Shall I say
you
what it
do the
is?
Sabian, yes, I do, and I'll find where I put the Chandra symbol, because I forgot where to.
Are we doing the 17? Virgo
Yes,
17?
well, it'll be 18, won't it? So,
Okay, well, 18, Virgo 18 is a Ouija board, a symbol of the completeness with which man is able to see his experience both steadily and whole, dramatized here by the planchette as representative of effective anticipation or true rational divination. The inner comprehension becomes articulate in outer form whenever a practical judgment is allowed to order it, and the individual then begins to realize that coming events have a myriad of signatures on which he can count. He masters life through his creative sensitiveness to the illimitable potentials. The key word is acumen.
mm,
When positive, the degree is cleverness in making use of everyday insights and intimations, and when negative, a bondage to superstition and a surrender to the unknown.
ooh, interesting.
That is interesting.
And I'll read the Chandra symbol, because I find these really good as well. So, it's eyeglasses which cause one to see rainbows. I love
I love it.
seeing through the eyes of anybody, everybody, all worlds together, all worlds differentiated sharply. You are able to switch perspective from the personal vantage point to any conceivable other, drawn to extend the range of perception and the worldview to encompass what it looks like from the inside of each and every one. Clairvoyant, telepathic, and mythically potent with the power of story. I love how the words we've been using are coming up in both these things. Keenly guided to unfold consciousness into its evolutionary potential, you are thoroughly convinced that if all sides can be respected, honored, and lived into, interpersonal dynamics will naturally work out optimally, and you feel ultimately transported by an affirmative, life-giving perspective to open doors and make this world a brighter place with simple, straightforward brush strokes of cosmic common sense. And do you know what I'm going to name this new moon? I call it the Socialist New Moon.
Yes, that's brilliant. I do think that's a brilliant way to put it. Although I know a lot of people are terrified of the idea of social.
Oh, less and less so though now. Apparently the word socialism is becoming more acceptable.
Good, good, as
Yeah.
it should, because socialism is all about being social and connecting the dots and creating community, which is what this is all about.
And
Creating
knowing that we're all connected. Yes.
That's right, through relationships.
Exactly.
I do want to mention that the last part of the what I read, the Sabian symbol, where he says that you know the negative or the doubt shadow is moving into surrender into the unknown. Well, I don't think that's a negative at all.
I don't either.
Like, what the hell are you talking about, buddy? But
I know.
surrender into the unknown. This is what this is about. We
That,
have to surrender into the wonder, like the magic of being in the rainbow. We don't know what's coming, so
is
we
that
can
Dane Rudyard's?
enjoy it. Huh?
Is that Dane Rudyard's interpretation?
This is Edmund Mark.
Oh, it was Mark Edmund Jones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we have to remember, and some couple of people have mentioned this recently about the Sabian symbols, that they were written from a very patriarchal point of view. So
Yes.
the patriarchy was afraid of the shadow. So yeah.
Yeah, and also we have to remember that all of these things, that a lot of that we look back at, were created in a patriarchal energy, and so
Yeah.
things are different. But the beauty is we can look at it and we don't have to agree with everything.
Oh, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And we can just accept that they wrote it from that point of view, this interpretation. So
yeah, and it's not so sacred that we can't say I disagree. Like,
exactly.
this is the point where we are. Like, oh, okay, that's your opinion. That's great.
Yeah.
I accept this part. The other part I don't want.
So Jen, how can people find you?
They can find me at my website or around the interwebs, or whatever it's called these days. Jen Duchenne. My website is jenduchenne.com, and I'm on Facebook and everywhere.
Cool. And me, you can find me. My website is louiseeddington.com. I have a Facebook page, Louise Eddington Astrologer. I write daily on medium.com under my name, Louise Eddington. And I also have a Patreon, Louise Eddington too. So you've just searched my name, basically. If you'll Google me, you'll find me. So I love how Google's become a verb. But anyway, we won't go on.
Crazy. Google me. I'm out there.
So anyway, for now, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.